June 2nd, meeting to finalize Srila Prabhupada's formal last will. When making my original video, somehow I missed this, so I'm adding it in now. Actually, it's already January of 2021 as I record this video. On the 2nd of June, a number of devotees, GBC men, were in Srila Prabhupada's room, and Giriraj began reading off the draft copy of Srila Prabhupada's final written will. The actual recording is over 30 minutes long, and a lot of details were discussed about properties, etc., so I won't play the whole thing. There are only several points that I wanted to bring out in connection to this issue. The first point is the first point that Srila Prabhupada makes.
We drafted a will, including the trust for the properties of India and some of the others.
We tell you direction. The management is done that.
Yes.
Nobody can sell mortgage. This temple will be in charge of this person.
Yes, just like you said. So we've included those points and the points in your written will.
The only or main interest of Srila Prabhupada concerning his last written will was that in that will, direction be given as to how management was to be done. And that's all. And of course, though, later on, they discussed properties and, it all became part of the will. But his main point was that how management, the direction of how management was to be done, that he wanted in the will. And yet, as I've pointed out so many times, his will mentions absolutely nothing at all about any future gurus, masters in his ISKCON mission. The bona fide guru is the topmost absolute authority, the master of his disciples. He is the master of the ashram where he acts as guru. That's what a guru is. When Srila Prabhupada formed the GBC, he did so by writing up the direction of management. It's a document. In that document, he not only defined the position of the newly created GBC members, but he also stated his own position in relation to them. After giving the list of 12 men he had selected to become the first members of the GBC, Srila Prabhupada wrote, and I quote, "These personalities are now considered as my direct representatives. While I am living, they will act as my zonal secretaries. And after my demise, they will be known as executors." End of quote. While Srila Prabhupada was living, these men were to be his direct representatives. They will act as his zonal secretaries. Obviously, the relationship was one in which Srila Prabhupada retained his authority over and above the GBC members, who were, after all, his own disciples. On Srila Prabhupada's demise, after he departed, these men would then become known as executors. Just to clarify, the word or the title executor doesn't mean some nefarious person who executes or kills others. The term herein means that the GBC members were to execute the instructions and teachings of his divine grace. As Srila Prabhupada would explain shortly in the same document, where he explains the purpose of the GBC. He then wrote, and I quote, "The purpose of the governing body commission is to act as the instrument for the execution of the will of his divine grace. And further, number one, the GBC oversees all operations and management of ISKCON as it receives direction from Srila Prabhupada, and his divine grace has the final approval in all matters." End of quote. As the spiritual master of his mission and his ashrams, his divine grace retained full authority over and above the GBC. But if Srila Prabhupada had wanted there to be successor gurus, multiple masters in ISKCON after he departs, where would they fit in? Traditionally, especially if a guru has but just one ashram center, the current acharya will select and name one successor, and he will turn over that ashram to the selected successor. That successor then will become the next master, the ultimate authority for that ashram. And if His Divine Grace were to have selected one successor guru, we can see there would be an absolute need for him to have given clear written instructions and guidance, written down where he gave his full authorization to that successor for them to become the next ultimate authority or master for his mission after he departs. Aside from the spiritual aspects, there would be the legal ramifications regarding the ownership of properties, control of bank accounts, etc. Obviously, Srila Prabhupada didn't select a single successor acharya, and thus he never gave any such instructions that any single person was to inherit his mission, his ashrams, etc., as the next acharya for ISKCON. However, as we can clearly see how such clear and detailed instructions would have been absolutely needed had he just selected one successor. The problem is, if he had actually wanted that there would be multiple masters in ISKCON after he departed, then it would have been that many more times imperative. They would have had needed to leave and give clear, written, concise guidance on how all that was to work. He would have needed to define their authority and define their position in relation to the GBC. And the most obvious place for him to give that guidance would have been here in this last written will. Clearly, he gave no such guidance at all, period. No mention, nothing at all ever of a future ISKCON that would have multiple gurus, multiple masters. Please understand, you won't find that anywhere in Prabhupada's Veda base. He never mentioned a single thing about the future of ISKCON having multiple gurus. So anyway, these are other arguments that we make. That Srila Prabhupada had never intended there to be any other initiating spiritual master in his ISKCON mission other than himself. He was to have remained the one and only authorized initiator guru. That's why he set up the Rtvik system. That's why he took so much time and very ill health. We'll come to that time frame. Very ill health, and he spent days, many meetings, to create the July 9th letter, which outlined and created the system by which he would remain the actual initiator guru. And he would set up Rtvik representatives, a Rtvik representative system that would handle the physical aspects of the initiation on his behalf when he was no longer here. That system, it fits perfectly into the managerial system that Srila Prabhupada had set up. Of course, a multiple guru system does not. And also we can see by the way Srila Prabhupada handled matters. He was meticulous about such matters. If at all he wanted there to be multiple gurus, he would have left full, sufficient, written details on how that sort of situation was to work. We can look at how he created the GBC. He didn't just give some verbal off-the-cuff instruction. No, he authored a well-written document that can be used in a court of law if need to be to uphold the system that he had wanted. He carefully outlined the purpose and the functions of the GBC, and he defined his own relationship with that new body. And here, as he goes over his final will, as we will see, he is meticulous. He's paying attention to the details that his GBC secretaries had missed. Let's listen again as Giriraj reads part of the will. As he is reading, the way the will had been drafted, it referred to the GBC members as being trustees for ISKCON. The title trustee infers there's a trust, which is a legal entity. Srila Prabhupada objects to the use of that title, as he asks if a new trust was being created. His concern is that if there's a new trust, the governments will then want to excise income taxes from that trust. Therefore, he objects, and he asks that a different title be given to describe the position of the GBC after he departs. Giriraj reads.
1. The governing body commissioned GBC to be the trustees of the entire International Society for Krishna consciousness.
When there is a question, the trustee will be given, then they will stand.
No, because the ISKCON trust is already there, and ISKCON is already tax exempt. The only difficulty is if you create a new trust.
No, new trust.
No.
And instead trustees
Use a different word.
Not to apply.
Oh, I see. Just get a word.
supreme manager.
Supreme manager.
Or the ultimate managers, like that.
We have made executives. Yeah. Or commissioners. You have commissioners, because it's already.
Use that word.
Use a word that's from that. Okay. Now we see one word.
So we can see how Srila Prabhupada is the one who caught this problem by giving the GBC members the title of trustees for ISKCON. Therefore, Prabhupada first suggests calling them supreme managers, which invokes a chuckle from Gopal Krishna. Then Srila Prabhupada suggests the title as ultimate managers. Then the devotees give some other, suggestions, executives, executors, commissioners, etc. In the end, Srila Prabhupada asks them to select a suitable word or title. In the final signed copy of his will, the title ultimate authority was settled on. We can see how he paid close attention to such details. If he had wanted that there would be multiple gurus in his mission after he departed, Srila Prabhupada would not have missed the need for there to be explicit, detailed, and written guidance and instruction on how that was to all have worked. Whereas those, where would those new masters fit into the system of management that he had set up? What would their position be in relation to the GBC? As masters, they have authority. How would that work within that GBC structure? He would not have overlooked such a glaringly obvious, point, which again bolsters our argument that he never wanted any such system of multiple gurus. He set up a system by which he would remain the one and only authorized spiritual Diksha Guru. The whole system was a complete concoction that the GBC are on. It was never supposed to have taken place. It has absolutely no basis at all in what Srila Prabhupada instructed regarding how initiations would be conducted after he has departed.